I think you should be Trump's vice president.
Is this how we're going to start?
Yep.
It's funny. Everyone has asked me about that. I've never had that conversation with the president. I talked to him yesterday. I don't think he needs a vice president. If there's ever one president who's so strong he doesn't need one, it would be him.
Actually, I agree. I agree with that because Trump is the ticket. And especially after that CNN town hall, we have all been feeling like he's back.
Yeah.
I finally, they tried getting him in the beginning to have him talk about the past in 2020 and stuff, because what CNN's trying to do. They're trying to get him off base so that he stops talking about the real problems we're experiencing.
That's right.
With the border, with the economy. But he performed so tremendously. CNN cut the show by 20 minutes. Did you hear that?
I did not hear. Are you kidding?
They did.
The people in the control room were probably
Shut
like,
it down.
She's bombing out there. She was really bombing.
Yeah,
Totally bombing.
It was supposed to be an hour and a half. And then something weird happened, like 40 minutes in, they jumped to a commercial, which was odd for a town hall. And then they come back for like 10 minutes, then jump to commercial again. Then come back, and it was 69 minutes, and they shut it down.
Their heads were just like exploding, and they're like, "What do we do? He's actually doing well, and she's bombing."
That's
yeah, I think he did a great job. He's the only guy that can get us through these problems we are, in my opinion, that we have, and it kills me how they say all he does is look at the past and talk about 2020, and then they start off asking about that.
Exactly.
No, I think he should say, you know what? I'm not going to answer that question. Because you are not, to Caitlin, you're not professional enough to have done your homework on it so we can have a real discussion. So let's move on, because then you're going to write that all I did was talk about that, and you're the one bringing it up. Next question.
He tried in the beginning. He tried saying, well, let's talk about immigration. He goes, well, I want to go back. And then there was that panel discussion. I don't know if you saw it, where the CNN guy asks the panel, are you upset that Trump kept bringing up 2020? And he goes, it was the first question you asked him.
Yeah.
Like, you ask him about it and then get mad that he brings it up. Get out of here with this.
Maybe the way to answer that is, I refuse to answer that question. And then the headline is, Trump refuses to talk about 2020.
Right.
I mean, it goes against what they've been saying forever. But, I think you talked about VP, and I think what Trump needs for a VP. First of all, the fact that the media is asking about that means that they're acknowledging he's going to be the nominee.
Right.
I don't hear anybody asking about other people running and who their VP is going to be. He's so strong, he doesn't really need a VP, but he needs somebody, if he does pick someone, I believe, who the media hates more than him, who's loyal and will continue to be loyal. I mean, we saw with Mike Pence, he wasn't really loyal.
Right.
But somebody who, right now with Biden, people are more worried almost about Kamala. She's so incompetent. And so it's like, well, you want to get rid of him, but, the other choice is really just as bad.
They don't have anybody.
They want somebody who they fear more.
Yeah.
They fear more.
Well, so right now, there's, in terms of the presidential race, well, I'll pause right there and say there's conversations around you, and there's still the work that's going on in Arizona, but also potentially a Senate run, which we'll get into. But I wanted to start off with this because the big conversation is, Trump or DeSantis. People are fighting over it. They're online. They're saying DeSantis is better because he attracts moderates. But then the Trump supporters are saying DeSantis is not strong enough and Trump needs to finish this out. I do think there's a big net positive with a Trump DeSantis ticket, in that when I talk to moderates, when I'm hanging out in the city or whatever, there's concern over Trump. I've heard from independents being like, oh, I'm just so tired of Trump. Then I said, what about a Trump DeSantis ticket? And they're like, well, okay. My issue with DeSantis, though, is I'm not sure he's strong enough for what's lying ahead. And the reason why I said I think you should be the VP is because, with all due respect to Trump, I think you're much like him in terms of strength, but media savvy, right? Trump is good at taking down the media and fulfilling that cathartic release for people who have been lied to. But you, coming from media, actually know how to handle them really, really well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's fun when I'm actually, in some ways, I like the hostile interviews, and they never understand that if you're going to throw that kind of bias toward me, I'm going to call it out because I understand what they're doing. I see what they're doing, and I will just call them right out to their face. So, I thought Trump was great in the or the debate. What I don't know what they called it. It wasn't really a debate.
Town
Hall. Yeah,
the debate with Caitlin Collins.
he is good at attacking the media. He's the one who first kind of informed us how fake the media was. I was working in the media and didn't realize that. And then it started to become more and more obvious. He almost revealed that for us. And maybe I'm another version of him because I actually know exactly what they're up to after working in it.
Well, so let's then go back to the beginning, I suppose, or not necessarily the beginning, but where we are now. I mean, what are you currently working on? What's happening?
Well, as you know, we're still addressing November 8th, and we have an active court case. As a matter of fact, when this airs, we're going to be in court. Our attorneys are in court, so we're working on that. We've got some great bombshells about what happened, and we have a 3-day trial tentatively scheduled for next week. So the media wants everyone to think it's over. I know, no, nothing to see here. Don't talk about it, but definitely don't talk about it. Nothing to see, and it's actually still active.
It was interesting. You actually, I would say, preliminarily won. You presented this lawsuit. You have a bunch of claims. The judge throws out most of them, but lets few of them go through. And you see this interesting media dynamic of the corporate press said Kari Lake loses, and then, but that's inaccurate. The judge actually accepted some of the claims. And in a lawsuit, this is normal. You'll go with a lawsuit. You'll say, here's 20 arguments. And then you'll say, these 2 are good. And that's part of the process.
Right.
So they try to frame it as though you lost when actually it's moving forward. And in a couple hours after, from the time of recording this, by the time this airs, you will be in court.
Yeah, our attorneys will be in court today in Maricopa County, and we'll see what happens. We know we have strong evidence, and we know we have a strong case. The question is the judiciary fair? Do we have a fair justice system? And I don't think I have to. I think you all can answer that for yourself if we have a fair justice system.
This is the big challenge, especially when we're looking at what's going on in big cities with crime and fairness. And so I suppose, not to just kind of brush it off, but I'll say you've got a court case today, so we will see how that goes.
If you want more information on it, you can go to, check me out on Twitter, go to my website. I think we'll have a link there. Is that right? We'll have a link probably
we can put a link
today.
But so I suppose the issue is in the news right now, you have the Daniel Penny case. I mean, you have Daniel Penny and Daniel Perry. Are you familiar with these cases?
I've heard of the Penny one.
Penny is the guy in New York who along with 2 others, was trying to stop a violent...
A crazed person on the subway, yes.
And then Perry was the guy who had the Antifa approach him with the rifle raised up and then fired on him and is now going to prison for 25 years. So it's interesting to see these different circumstances.
They want us not defending ourselves. They want us to just become victims of crime. And the only way to stop these criminals is for them to be more afraid of their victim. And I don't walk around feeling like I'm going to become a victim of a crime, because I will.
Defend yourself.
The last person you want to mess with is me. I'm sweet, but I'm also not going to allow somebody to hurt me.
This is the scary thing, though. I mean, if you're in a place like New York, and increasingly all of the major cities are behaving this way, New York City is a place where crime has been escalating. I'm not saying it's the worst in the country or whatever, but
it's pretty bad. I was just there.
And you had last year 25 people shoved in front of oncoming trains. 2 of them lost their lives. You get a man in... This is a very interesting dynamic.
And they let these people out.
Yeah.
They don't even put them behind bars.
Oh, but here's where it gets good. We're talking about whether the judiciary is fair. In New York, there's a man. He's a former Marine. He's 24. He, along with 2 other people, were confronted by a violent homeless person who said he would hurt somebody and didn't care if he would go to jail. 3 people who live in New York thought it'd be reasonable to subdue this man. After subduing him, placed him in the recovery position. Ocasio-Cortez, Democrats, and activists demanded this man be imprisoned. He's now facing 15 years.
For trying to protect others, really.
And now
it's a pretty noble thing, right?
Here's the best part. There's another story happening in New York, which is a little more crass. A homeless black man went into a restaurant and took a pride flag and used it to clean himself after relieving himself outside. They're demanding a maximum sentence for him having done this. So we talk about a judiciary, whether it's fair. If you're a homeless man who is unwell and you defecate on a pride flag, they want you locked up, maximum sentence. If you are a Marine trying to protect others from a homeless, violent man, the homeless man now is the victim.
I always say we're living on planet crazy. And, this is the same legal system in New York that they just tried President Trump under on a 20-year-old charge that is really sounds made up. I
Yeah.
mean, it does. I'm sorry. I read through it. I'm like, and every person should be horrified. Every single human being in New York. I mean, you could just have a made up charge thrown your way and it can ruin your life. But it won't. But it won't because they'll only go after someone like President Trump. They have to stop him. They have to stop him because he wants to turn things around, and that's what it's about. I don't feel safe in American cities right now. Phoenix is dangerous. It wasn't so long ago we were driving downtown to the Capitol, and we got into Phoenix, and for about 10 minutes we're driving, and I was looking out the window, and I was like, I have not seen one person walking on the street except for homeless people. And this is why I put forth a really bold plans when I was running a policy to address chronic street homelessness. This is a serious problem. These people are a danger to others and they're a danger to themselves. And I've said it before, God didn't envision any one of us living in a tent on the street with a needle in our arm. And we can help these people and we can help them get better if we care enough. And we can make them contributing citizens, but we can't do that with a wide open border and a never-ending stream of drugs coming in. And that's why it had to go in conjunction with a great homeless policy. We have to shut down the criminal activity the narco-terrorists are polling at the border.
Oh, man. And that's huge right now with Title 42 expiring and where we're going with that. So I want to get to that. But let's start here with the homeless problem. Every city's basically seeing this. DC's seeing it. What do you think we could do to, I mean, look, I want to help these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want them to go from being sleeping in a tent with a needle in their arm to a productive member of society with a smile on their face with a good life. What can we do?
Well, our policy is pretty bold. For starters, like I said, you can't do the homeless policy unless you're dealing with the drugs pouring in, because you're going to get someone clean, and then there's just drugs on every street corner. So you have to go really hard. We have to start going after crime. There's about, if you go to Phoenix, I think the number might be a little bit off, 200, 300 individuals who commit 90% of the crime, and it's just a rotation. They're booked, they're in and out of jail, charges dropped. We have to start going after the people who are committing most of the crime and actually have consequences for their actions. We can't keep just saying, well, all right, we'll dismiss those charges. We've got to start locking people up who commit crime. Some of the people who gotten clean the fastest are the ones who end up in jail. But we also have to make sure that when they get out, we're able to help them find work and become contributing members. So many people get out of prison and they can't find work. So I believe in bringing down the recidivism rate so that they don't end up on drugs back on the street again, but encouraging people to get treatment. And if they don't, then going after them for trespassing, going after them for any violent crimes, any public nuisance. We have to start addressing the behavior with serious consequences.
It's so systemic, right? The border being a major component of this. Mm-hmm. Drugs crossing over. A lot of these drugs are coming from China. China is sending opioids through the southern border. I mean,
the ingredients for it all.
Right. It's a crazy story. You know, we have Ian Crossland on IRL. He says he thinks it's China's revenge for the
opium wars.
The opium wars.
Yeah,
they're getting revenge on us.
Well, if you don't think that you can destroy a society and a civilization with drugs, then that's a really good, history lesson to look at that, because you really truly can. I don't know if it's enacting revenge for opium wars. I think they are trying to destabilize America because they do want to become the dominant world power. And with feeble, weak, impotent Joe Biden in office, I'm talking about his leadership, we're not going to have somebody who can beat back the CCP. And Trump could do that. But, really quick on the drugs thing. Why do people use drugs? We've seen the crumbling of the family. The family unit's been crumbling for decades now, and a lot of it started with sending our jobs overseas, ending manufacturing, shutting down factories. Dad lost his job. Dad's depressed. The family unit struggles. They're financially struggling. Sometimes resorted to crime or getting involved in behavior that wasn't appropriate, or a divorce ensued. And we've been seeing this for decades, and it hurts the family structure. We just came from Budapest, Hungary, where CPAC was going on, and I was blessed to speak over there. I've never been in a city that was more clean safe. The children are running around. What they did about 10 years ago is they started to say, we're going to strengthen the family unit. We're going to encourage people to get married. We're going to encourage people to have children. And we're going to, instead of giving people tax breaks and welfare for sitting home, we're going to give you tax breaks if you get married. How about a tax break when you get married? And when I think they have a 16% flat tax. When you have your first child, we bring that down a percentage. When you have your second, it goes down 2 more percent. And if you're a mother who has 4 children, what they do there is they say, you will never pay taxes again. You're tax exempt.
That's amazing.
We give a lot of tax exempt. We give tax breaks to corporations.
Yeah.
Same corporations pushing a lot of these crazy social issues on us. But we never considered to give maybe a tax break for somebody who decides to do the right thing, to work, start a family, raise a family. What about giving them a tax break? And it's working in the city. It's so beautiful. You go there. First thing I saw was moms holding babies. I was in New York. I only saw about 3 or 4 kids in the 3 days I was there. There aren't many kids in New York City.
And you know what you see in LA?
What?
The mom is standing 10 feet behind the caretaker who's pushing the baby cart. So they hire people to raise their kids for them and things like that.
What I see often is I see a little cart being pushed around and I go, oh, I can't wait to see the baby. I peek in and it's a dog.
I was going to say that.
I see that a lot. Actually, more often than not, I look into a stroller and I see a dog. I go, oh, I love dogs. Don't get me wrong. I have a dog myself.
Yep.
But it's, having children, and I've told you this, Tim, I want you to be a dad someday. I hope you will.
Working on it.
You're working on it? Okay, good. It's really the greatest gift. It is the greatest gift that God gives us. And I really encourage people. It changes your entire life perspective. And we need to encourage that. It's so hard right now with the economic situation that Joe Biden has left us in. I know people your age who go, kids, I don't even think I'm going to be able to afford an apartment. Definitely not a house. How can I even afford to go on a date, let alone get married?
I think it's on purpose.
Yeah, it's the crumbling, and they want us lonely and
Dependent.
Divided, dependent.
Yeah, so this is the challenge, right? We talk about Hungary, and they did this great tax incentive program where you don't pay any taxes if you have, 4 kids or something like that?
The mother is, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And they also give tax breaks to grandparents who decide that they want to go and help take care of the babies, their grandbabies. It's really a beautiful thing. Of course, it probably people would have their heads exploding here if we talked about that. But we need to start encouraging strengthening families because so many of our societal ills come from the fact that the family has been weakened.
Well, so this is the challenge I see. It feels like we are in a great cultural war in this country where you have 2 factions. Within those factions, you have different factions. But what the left or the media would describe as right wing is actually relatively broad. Someone like me who's traditionally liberal can sit down with a conservative and be like, yeah, family strengthen the country. You look at the data on politics. Liberals and conservatives used to be they would overlap about 80% of political issues. That whole group now is called right wing. And the left I view as a chaotic and destructive force that is illogical and dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Ocasio-Cortez is blaming Daniel Penny, who is the victim of violent crime. She's blaming him for the death of this man who was actually the aggressor. When you have politicians who seek to implement an inverted policy, blaming victims and destroying this country, how can we implement a policy such as tax incentives for mothers who have more kids when you're actively fighting against someone who's trying to destroy the system, destroy the country?
It's tough. I mean, and this is why I think we need to really work on things like my court case, which I won't get into all the details, because we want to make sure that when we do go and cast a vote, that it's being done fairly. So I'm going to leave it at that because I know the format that we are of the show. And it's really important, and that's why I'm continuing to fight for that, because we have to have that in order to secure our country. But I think we can work together on this. I would hope that AOC cares enough about the families in her district. She's representing families that we could say we want to support them. So many women are making a decision to do something like have an abortion. And because they're afraid they don't have the money for the baby, they can't afford their own, living expenses, let alone feeding another baby or feeding a baby and raising a baby. And so in Hungary, this is amazing. They didn't change the abortion laws, but they cut the number of abortions in half because they actually started supporting families. I think think about that. They didn't touch the abortion. If we didn't touch abortion, we didn't touch any of the laws. And we brought down abortions by half because we actually said, what is it that's making you want to make that choice? And how can we help? We want to make sure that we have healthy families. And liberals live in families too. Ocasio-Cortez came from a family. I would certainly hope that she thinks it's important to have strong families. I don't think it's a left or a liberal, conservative, right-wing thing. But again, you have to be willing when you're making a case like that to stand up and take the heat. Viktor Orban, the prime minister, has been called every single name in the book. They call him a fascist. They call him a Nazi, you name it. And, you hear that and you think, oh my gosh, if I go to Hungary, it's going to be terrible. It was the most delightful place I've ever been. I loved it. And I had a chance to talk with him for close to an hour. We talked about policy, how he brought people together to implement these policies. He recognized we have to strengthen the family. The left is pushing right now anti-family. They're pushing to take parents' rights away. They're pushing to have children doing gender modification. I don't even know what they call it anymore. To change their gender and have surgery.
Child sex change.
Child
They
sex
don't call
changes.
it that. They call it affirming, but
Child sex change, gender mutilation. They're pushing that behind the parents' back. That is weakening the family. That's weakening the human being, the individual.
Well, see, this is an interesting subject too, because the right says mutilation, right? It's a very, very strong way to phrase it. The left says gender affirming care. I decided when it comes to the issue of abortion, when it comes to the issue of child sex changes, I'm going to use a basic fact-based academic term. But the funny thing is, the left loses it when I do that. They get mad. I'm calling it mutilation is very strong. And I can understand why people would be offended by it. That's the terms that the right and conservatives use. So I said, okay, I'll meet you halfway. We'll just call it a child sex change operation or medical intervention. And they say, no, how dare you call it that? That's crass or crude. I'm like, it's the academic term for what it is.
I don't think that mutilation is harsh. I think that's what they're doing. They're taking part of your body there's nothing wrong with, and they are mutilating it. And this should be a crime to have this happen.
In Florida,
the urological system is pretty advanced, okay? This is nature's plumbing. And to go in there and mess with that, you're setting up an individual for a lifetime of health problems.
Yep.
And guess what? When there's a lifetime of health problems, there's a lot of money in that. There's a lot of money in this industry.
Abortion is the same thing. Conservatives say pro-life. The left says pro-choice. Now, I really reject this one. I think you're either pro-abortion or anti-abortion.
That's actually how, when I was a journalist, I learned how you're supposed to address the issue. The issue is abortion.
Right.
And the left is almost diabolically brilliant in the way they use and twist language. And the right seems to go along with it and go, okay, all right, well, if you're pro-choice, we'll be pro-life. The issue is abortion.
Right. The right does do this.
And there really is no choice. As I always say, a frightened young woman goes into a clinic, an abortion clinic. There is no choice. They're given one choice. They don't sit that person down and say, hey, why are you choosing this? Is there something we can do to help? Is it financial? Because we can look to get you some financial help. Is it the fact that you don't think you can take care of the baby? We can help you find more information about adoption services and families who would love to raise your child. What is it that's causing you to want this abortion? That would be choice, right? Because you're giving an array of choices.
Yeah.
But there is no choice. And what happens is the young lady oftentimes gets the abortion and maybe initially says, okay, well, I guess I don't have to worry now. But months or years down the line is left with a wound that never heals, a regret that never heals. And oftentimes, many are left unable to bear children. I know several people who had an abortion and can never bear children again. Something happened in the process. Conversely, ask a mother who had a child unexpectedly, carried the baby, had the baby. Ask any mother on planet Earth, do you regret having your baby? I would challenge you to find one. I bet you can't find a single one who regrets that.
I'll be a bit pedantic.
No matter how weird or bad
some
their kid turned out. There's some bad kid.
No, but there's some evil people out in the world, but they're the exception, not the rule. Typically, I know many women who got pregnant, some of my good friends today, and their kids are, 9 or 10 years old, and they tell me they were scared and unsure, and the doctor said abortion's always an option, and they didn't know what to do. I have one friend who was told, you are not medically capable of doing this, and it could cause you could die. And
Whoa.
ask them now, would you have preferred to have gotten an abortion? And they say, how dare you? Because they have a kid who's 9 years old. Are you nuts? They love their kids.
Yeah, no mother ever has the regret that she had a baby. I've never met one, at least. Maybe there's one out there, but conversely, you ask people who've had an abortion and you have a lifetime of regret that you can't make it better.
This is what Trump did really well in that town hall. And boy, did they freak out. I think this is one of the reasons they probably cut it short. Trump said, Caitlin Collins asks him, if you were president, would you sign a ban on abortion? And he said, well, it depends on what the deal is. Some say 6 weeks, some say 8 weeks. I thought he'd give a brilliant answer. And he said, we've got negotiating power now on this, but it's not the right that's radical. It's the left. The Democrats, they want abortion up to 9 months. They says the woman could be about to give birth and they say you could kill the baby. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
He's completely right.
That was my argument, by the way, in when I was running. And people were just constantly, the media was like, where do you stand on abortion? Yeah, and I'm a pro-life, okay? I want to save as many babies as I can. I've held my own children in my arms, and I know it's a beautiful gift from God. Let's try to help people. Like I said, let's try to help women who are finding themselves in that position where they go, I can't do this. How can we help? Save as many babies as possible. And it should be up to the state to decide. I believe that. And but what we should do is try to support women so that when they're faced with a pregnancy, they can make a good choice that they're going to be able to live with the rest of their life.
We had a leftist on the show about just over a week ago. His name is Lance from the Surfs. So I appreciate him coming on the show.
I love it. You can talk to anyone.
Well, leftists typically don't like coming on and talking because they end up looking bad. And I think he did end up looking bad. But I respect that he was brave enough and sure of himself enough to actually come and talk. But something really interesting happened that resulted in a viral moment for us where he said, I ask many of these leftists, should a woman be legally allowed to abort a baby, ending its life at 8.5 months? They say yes. Now, typically what they'll do is they'll give some wishy-washy answer.
Just right out said yes.
So that's the thing. They don't outright say yes, but then eventually they do. And I have to do some prying. And I say, do women have a right to get an abortion at any time? They say yes. I'm like, so you're saying they are a day from giving birth to a healthy baby. The baby can survive right now on its own. You think because it's in the woman, the doctor can kill it. The woman can, well, it's her body. She can do it. Tell me yes or no. And then they finally will say yes. And then my question is, what's the difference between a baby that's gestated 9 months in the womb and out of the womb? The hypothetical. Two women conceive at the exact same time, and their babies have gestated the exact same amount of time. One woman gives birth 10 minutes early. The other woman says, abort the baby. You think that baby could be aborted? Say, yes, it's the woman's choice. And I just say, why kill the baby?
What choice does the baby have in that? I mean, it's just a different location. The baby happens to be in the
womb
versus it could survive outside the womb.
And I don't consider myself to be pro-life. I'm traditionally Democrat pro-choice, but they've never given me a reason why they think it's acceptable to end the life of the baby if it could survive on its own. And Unity says, you're in favor of forced birth. I said, define birth. And he goes, huh? I'm like, what is it? The baby's there. It has to come out. Why kill it? They have no answer.
Yeah.
I genuinely think they just want less people.
Well, I mean, we could go into a lot of these cultural things, and it shouldn't even be cultural. It's just like common sense stuff. I mean, we talked about children being talked into sex changes, and I think we've gotten so polarized politically that the left is like, I will double down. I'm going to double down. I don't want to be wrong on it, no matter how crazy things get. Where they go, okay, the child's gender confused. Should they be allowed to, use this bathroom or that? Yes, absolutely. They whatever they say. Then now it's getting to the point where they're having surgery. The children are having surgery. The 14-year-old girl or 15-year-old girl is having her breast removed, having a hysterectomy. And they double down. Yes, absolutely.
Rare as it is.
They don't want to be wrong. And it's like, where do we draw the line here? We're talking about people's lives right now.
We pulled this up during a debate on the show with another liberal lefty guy. And he's like, how many girls are people are getting surgery? They say, no, minors aren't getting surgery. Kim Petras in Germany. I know Germany's not the United States. 16 years old, biological male, sex change surgery. Jazz Jennings in Florida. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the initial surgery Jazz got was in Florida, but Jazz has received gender alteration surgery, because this is like the third one. I don't know what you'd call it, but gender modification or genital modification surgery in Florida. And this is in the United States. Jazz Jennings initially got the operation at 17 as a minor. But we bring this up, and it's a couple thousand teenage girls in the United States over the past 4 years have received double mastectomies. It is in the couple thousand, I think it's about 2,000 to 3,000. And the response from the left is, oh, well, that's not that much. And I'm like, one is too much. Are you kidding?
In an American hospital or clinic, this is crazy. Well, and it is happening, and there's big business and there's big money behind it. And you see the advertising. I've seen it at hospitals in Arizona advertising for whatever they call it, gender reaffirming surgery. They're advertising it. And we saw an ad not that long ago. We posted about it where they're talking now with toddler age. Your toddler can have gender, I don't know what their term is, confusion. They can be transgender from a very young age. They're trying to get parents to start pushing this on their kids at a very young age when they're 3 and 4 years old. What happens is, and I've talked about this many times before, our children's minds are malleable. There's a reason that our beautiful little 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds get real excited around Christmas time about somebody coming down the chimney. And it's a really fun, beautiful thing. That shows you how malleable our children's minds are.
There's a rabbit leaving candy for you hidden around the house.
It's exciting. It's wonderful. And I think that's fabulous. I don't want to ever change that. The beautiful imagination of our kids. Then you send them into school and they have somebody who they trust, the teacher or somebody at school, a counselor. They're having a bad day. They're afraid. They're psychologically struggling, or they're seeing that they're talking about all this gender stuff. And they're like, well, look, if you change genders, if you want to be a different gender, you get more attention. Kids want attention.
Yep.
How do you get ahead in this world right now? Meritocracy is dead. It doesn't matter if you're a great scientist, mathematician, if you're a great athlete. That's not enough anymore. It's not enough to be good at what you do. You have to do something like change your gender to get ahead or get noticed in this world.
We have a story where one of the people who work here and a prominent personality said that when she was living in a liberal area, her daughter likes playing sports, plays football. So without telling her, they went to the daughter and said, you're a lesbian and you're a boy. And so this young girl who's like, I think she's 10 or so, comes home and says this to her mom. And then the mother says, do you know what that means? She's like, I don't know. That's what they said I was. Okay, we're leaving the school. We're getting out of here.
Good.
Yeah.
She may have saved her daughter's life.
Absolutely. And this is why I tell people, get out of cities.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people who don't want to do it.
Watch that. They're going to be moving around here.
Yeah, but it's good. If somebody lives in California and they're of moderate politics, they don't want kids getting sex changes. They think abortion. I am traditionally liberal on the abortion issue, which is it used to be safe, legal, rare. There were rare circumstances where bad things were happening, and we leave it up to the mother and the doctor to come to the right conclusion. Now it's either you're on the right. I have conservatives who are pro-life telling me, well, let's talk about that, Tim. Maybe like Trump said, some people say 6 weeks, some people say 8 weeks. Why is Donald Trump coming to me and offering me a negotiation and a compromise where we can find a place to live together? And the left is saying abortion at any point for any reason, right?
Yeah.
There's an extreme side, and then there's the let's be reasonable people
It's
side.
interesting that he threw that out there, and something reasonable, or that what the general population would say is reasonable. And
The left says no.
they're going, no, we have to have it until 9 months moment of birth.
That's crazy.
It's really revealing everything we need to know.
They claimed who was lying. They said it was fact check false. Kathy Tran in Virginia proposed a bill that would allow abortion up to the point of birth. But my point was,
they call it partial birth abortion. The baby oftentimes can come out alive.
And then they kill it in the process. Yeah. And then the left says it never happens. But I'm like, if it happens one time, it's too many. And it does. But so if people who hold any kind of views in terms of reasonability or being reasonable, if they move from a blue state to Georgia, Ohio, or Wisconsin, they would turn those states red. We don't want Democrats, in California complaining about crime, moving to Florida and turning it blue. But what we're seeing is Florida has just become reliably red, which means come 2024, we don't got to worry about it. It's going to vote. It's going to go Trump. But Georgia, Wisconsin, and Ohio are pivotal swing states. If you live in New York or California, your vote's not going to do anything in terms of winning this culture war. And you're putting yourself and your family at risk with the increasing crime, violence.
Paying a fortune in taxes. And what do you get for those taxes? Not a damn thing. That's what makes me mad. We pay so high taxes. Think of California, New York, D.C., and you can't even walk down the street safely?
Now, what if these good people in California who know their vote's not going to have an impact decided, I'm going to go to Arizona?
They have been.
And that's a good thing.
Many of them voted for me, and they said, please, we got to keep our state red. And I believe our state is still bright red. I really do. We're working through the legal system. I'm not going to go into great detail because I know YouTube is showing this. Trust me, we're working through the legal system because we believe that's an important legal battle that must be had right now. We do have people who left California. They're fleeing. They're really, looking for some sanity. And they're refugees in a weird way. Right. Refugees, American refugees trying to flee these red states. And you mentioned it, small towns are so where it's at. Somewhere along the way, we got it in our head, you got to live in New York or Chicago or these big cities. And that is, I can't even imagine living in those cities right now.
It's hard, right? So I have, I think most people who follow my show agree with me. It's not just me saying it. It's Jack Posobiec who said it before me. Get out of the cities. But there are a lot of people, they like doing this thing where they say, it's easy for you to say, Tim, you're successful and you're wealthy. I'll tell everybody on this show, it costs, let me ask you, how much do you think it costs to have internet in this building where we are?
Well, you have a lot going on here. This isn't just your average internet. I mean, you operate your company through here. The
internet we have is equal to or less than home internet in New York or Philly or any major city. It cost $3,000 per month, and I believe it was about $30,000 up front to build the infrastructure. I could have purchased a building in New York, in the outskirts of New York, or in Austin, or in one of these liberal cities, and it would cost me $100 per month to have the internet. But I decided a few things. The cities are getting out of control. My vote has less of an impact. I don't want to build an economic system in a place where the beneficiaries are evil people. So we initially wanted to build all this in New Jersey, in the South Jersey area, which is moderate. It's moderate to conservative. We had Jeff Van Drew, who switched from Democrat to Republican. We weren't in his district, but we're in this area. And I said, this is an opportunity to push back. The problem, though, is all the tax money we generate would be going to very evil people.
That's right.
And so ultimately, I said, with the crime, with the riots, we need to go somewhere else. Now, we're still about an hour away from Washington, D.C., from Baltimore, so we're still in a relatively metropolitan area. But we're now in a right-leaning purple area where our employees who move here, our votes help push back the influence from the cities into a red state. People need to understand this about West Virginia. It's the second most Trump-supporting state in the country, but in the Eastern Panhandle, liberals from D.C. are moving here as refugees to get away from their own bad policies and then voting for it here.
Ugh.
So we've got to have some pushback. So I know that not everybody can do this. Not everybody can leave where they are. It's very, very difficult. But we really do need people to consider, to whatever extent, it may be one of the most difficult things you've ever done in your life, but to go to a place where your vote has a huge impact.
I never thought of that. Moving so that your vote is more powerful. I never thought of that.
If all the people who live in Southern California who know that we are right moved to Arizona and voted for you, you'd win
They
in a
did.
landslide.
They did.
A lot of them did. But imagine if all of them did.
I'm going to try not to get you canceled today. I've had a lot of people canceled, and I agree with you 100%.
There's a lot of conservatives in Eastern California going up all the state, Tulare County, for example, and they're being mercilessly beaten by Democrat policies.
But you know what's even bigger that's happening right now? The conservatives are with us. We're seeing Democrats flee. When you
Right.
lose the Democrats and they go, whoa, this is not the Democrat Party I thought it was. Or they, and I think this is one of the reasons the left is not encouraging people to start families because they know something changes in you when you have a child, when you start a family.
It's
Your
true.
priorities are less about me and more about how can I protect my family.
I've been
That's
tweeting
big.
about this. When you get married or have kids, you are more likely to become conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes both ways, actually. If you are conservative, you're raised conservative, more likely to have kids. If you're raised liberal and have kids, you start adopting conservative policies. I wonder why that is.
You have to, because it's common sense policies. That's what it is. And they've called me every name in the book: extreme, right wing, far right. So far we have been right about everything. But I would just challenge people: don't get caught up in that. Look at the policies. This is why I'm so impressed with President Trump right now. And I was so angry that the town hall didn't concentrate on his policies. And I guess the only little criticism or suggestion I would have made to him is to pivot away from her hostile line of questioning and bias toward his policies, to say, you know what, you really want to keep talking about the past. I want to talk about Agenda 47, which is going to strengthen our families, and this is how. We're going to bring down the housing prices so that young people can afford to buy and build a home. We're going to increase the funding that goes to our police departments so that our streets are safe. Here's what we're going to do in schools to make sure they're not indoctrinating our kids. You have to, with these people, pivot them away from their own insanity.
And it was an opportunity, too. I mean, this is why
His
I was
policies
saying
are great. I wish people were hearing about them. And the media is never going to ask him about that. They have to keep beating the drum of this other stuff. So to say he's stuck in the past, he's not stuck in the past. He's looking toward the future. He knows that we're going to turn things around. It doesn't seem like it's possible because Joe Biden has dropped us off a cliff, but we can pick up the pieces. And I believe with everything I've got in my body, every single fiber of my being, we can turn things around and actually be better.
This is why I said right when we started, I was like, before the show started, I said, I'm going to go heavy. You should be VP. And the reason is messaging. You have so many viral moments where you turned the media's trick back on onto them. So one example I think of in terms of this town hall is, if it were me and I was sitting there and Caitlin Collins said, I want to ask you about 2020, I would say, look, I'm not the president right now. I want to be the president in 2024 because the economy needs help, the border. And then when she goes, no, I want to go back to 2020, I'd say, why are you so obsessed with 2020? Don't you think
Caitlin, don't live in the past.
That's exactly
young
it.
lady.
Turn it on.
Don't live in the past. That's great.
Yep.
That's
Say, don't you think we should be talking about the concerns of the American people? But I want to ask you about things you've said. If you really want to talk about it, I mean, I think we should be servicing the American people, not playing to the whims of the media.
Oh man, and it would turn the whole thing right back at them,
Right.
throw it in their face, and they wouldn't know what to do.
But you have those moments. There's so many clips that have gone viral of you doing just that.
This is why I don't think they'll ever invite me on The View or MSNBC. I ran into Mika and Joe, Morning Joe, in the airport. I was in Florida about a
Really?
month and a half ago, and it went viral. My husband said, "Is that Joe Scarborough?" And I said, "Oh my gosh!" I did a U-turn, followed him down the escalator. I mean, we were kind of right in the same area. I said, "Joe, hey Joe, how are you?" And he turned around. He was heading into the men's room. He goes, "Hey," and he was actually really nice. I said, "I just wanted to introduce myself. I've never met you in person. You guys spend a lot of time bad-mouthing me on your show, and I wanted you to actually meet me and just meet the human being behind the
Yeah,
name."
That's great.
And he was actually rather nice about it. Mika started recording me and was not
Really?
very friendly. Their handler said, "You're a liar. You're delusional." She was saying that kind of stuff to me. And I said, "No, actually, I've never lied. I've never lied about, November 8th. I've always been truthful." And it was just interesting, but she was recording me.
That's so weird.
Mika was recording me. I said, "Are you recording me?" And she goes, "Yes." And Joe said, don't do that. I mean, he was like mad at her.
That's amazing.
But we ended up putting this out and it went viral.
Yep.
You know, you just have to
I think you do a
call
really great
these
job with
people
this
out.
stuff.
We're just human beings. They're a human being as well.
Yeah.
But they're being paid
Well,
to
I
do.
think-
They're being paid to push that agenda. And when you think about it, can you imagine being paid to push an agenda
I know
that goes against our country?
I've experienced working for companies that have tried to do this. When I worked for Fusion, which was ABC News, Univision's joint venture, I said, look, I report the news. And they said, for the first 8 months or so, they were like, you know, do your thing, report the news. And then at some point, they brought in a new editor-in-chief whose Twitter profile was down with whiteness. And they said, we want to side with the audience. And my attitude to these people was, look, I'm going to go on the ground. I'm going to tell you what I see. I'm going to talk to people, ask them how they feel. I'm going to show you what the police are doing. That's it. I am not going to lie. And that's what they wanted. I asked the president of this company, when he told me this, side with the audience, I said, are you telling me that if there is a factual news story, but it would offend our audience, we won't cover it? He said, I think that's fair, yeah. And I was like, ultimately, I won't do this, and I think I should leave the company. And they wouldn't let me because I signed a contract. And they were like,
They
well,
owned you.
no.
That's like Tucker Carlson. They own him. Thank God he's going to be able to pull away from that.
They wanted to sign me for 3 years. I said 2. And they were like, well, 3 years is really for you. It's a lot of money. And I was like, well, we'll do 2 years. And I was right. Because 8 months in, they said, we're going to go full woke. And I said, I'm just here to report the news. So ultimately, what ends up happening is for a year, I basically stagnate. Golden handcuffs, they call it.
Yep.
They wanted
I understand
to report.
that.
Yep.
Worked in the media for a long time.
That you sign the contract, and then if you don't report what they want, they put you in the janitor's closet and say, you're under contract.
This is what I think they did with Tucker. They knew they couldn't have that voice of reason out there speaking going up to the election. He wasn't for the war in Ukraine. He was he was inviting MAGA type guests on. And by MAGA, you know, let's remind people what it stands for: Make America Great Again. If you're not for making America great again,
what are you for?
What are you for?
Yeah. Open
exactly.
borders. Well, they're coming after us now. This is an interesting week for us. I don't know if
No, I haven't heard what.
in the a couple things. One, the shooter in Texas, they found this Russian profile where he had posted 4 clips of one episode. So what do? They report he was a fan of the show.
I did hear that. Okay.
Despite the fact it was one episode and he wasn't even a subscriber, because they're lying. Then we had,
They got to bring you down somehow, because you know what? You're too powerful.
well, people are saying, look, we don't get nearly as many views as Tucker does, but we do get comparable views in the key demographic, and we're on at the same time as him. So Tucker gets nuked from Fox News. Now we see this wave of negative press for me. The other thing that happened was a juror in the E. Jean Carroll rape trial of Trump said that he had seen 3 or 4 episodes of Timcast. That was enough for them to try and get him disqualified from the jury. And for some reason, New York Times, Politico, and a whole bunch of news outlets, Daily Beast, picked the story up. The question is, why is it news?
Well, what I would ask is, why all of a sudden is Timcast? They're going after, a lot of different outlets are going after Timcast. Interesting. They went after, we're going a year and a half in to this election. You've been very pro-Trump, not because you're, a sycophant. You're pro-Trump because you like, from what I understand, you really like the policies he's putting forth.
Foreign policy.
Foreign policy is everything.
They don't like that.
And they have to stop you. They try to stop Tucker. They're going to try to stop anybody who's for him. They're coming after me. They're going after Bannon. They're going after, you name it.
And it's interesting to me, because they write these weird things.
Concerted effort.
They say like pro-Trump personality or whatever, and I'm just like, I'm like as barely pro-Trump as you could be in terms of being pro-Trump. I'm like, for a while I said I think DeSantis is better because he's what's the right word? He's not as bombastic, and so he attracts moderates. However, I think Trump's going to be the only candidate to go in and actually fire these corrupt individuals. So we need one more term from Trump. I've criticized Trump's personality. I've brought up some of the bad foreign policy drone strikes. We've debated them on the show. But this is the point. We have on Timcast IRL Ian Crossland, who does not like Trump at all, who's very, very critical of Trump. We have Luke Rudkowski, who is a anarchist personality, who's very, very anti-Trump. And our audience says Luke has Trump derangement syndrome. But do a show where I say something like, despite those things, I still think Trump is the right choice, and they come after you. You can't even have one tiny bit of
And they go,
pro-Trump.
we have to destroy him and bring him down.
Yeah.
I frankly like Trump's enemies. I like the fact that he's got the enemies he has are the right kind of enemies. I don't want to vote for somebody who is being pumped up and supported by the same people who started the endless wars.
Right.
I mean, moderates should be looking at that. Moderates should be looking at who's going to start wars and who's going to end them. And Trump wants to end the wars.
And he did
can.
some of the best foreign policy, if not the best foreign policy of my life. So I'm born, surely I can say the fall of the Soviet Union was great foreign policy for the United States, right?
Absolutely.
I'm like, how old was I? What was it, 92? I'm 4 years old or something? I don't remember.
It was in the late 80s, actually.
When it fell, I think.
When
Yeah,
the
you're
Berlin
right.
Wall
You're
came
right.
down.
Yeah, the Berlin Wall. I don't know. I was a baby. I was a toddler.
When were you born?
86.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were younger than that.
Oh, no. I'm 37. So I'm a little kid when the Soviet Union falls. That was great. By the time I'm a teenager, I'm looking at the Clinton foreign policy, which included war. Then we get George W. Bush, obviously very, very bad in terms of the Middle East invasion. Then we get Barack Obama.
Lying about Iraq.
Absolutely.
Lying about Iraq.
Obama does the same thing. All of my friends are telling me Obama's going to be the guy to end these wars.
I thought he was, but
he
he
certainly
didn't.
was not.
Look at Syria. It's a mess.
Absolutely. More troops in Afghanistan.
And now they want to expand what's going on in Ukraine. I think their effort and their mission is to march us into World War III. And we're putting hundreds of billions of our hard-earned treasure. We certainly could use it on our streets right now. We could use it to help secure our border. It would cost a fraction of what we're spending in Ukraine. And the fastest way to end that conflict is to turn off the money and force these two men to the negotiating table to negotiate peace.
Boris Johnson stopped that from happening because the West is of the mindset that it's all or nothing. We win or nothing. And nothing means annihilation. I think of this in terms of...
There's no winning in that. There's no winning.
No, right.
And I think Caitlin said, do you want Ukraine to lose? Trump's like, that. Well, there is no winner and loser in war.
You want Ukraine to win the war? And Trump's like, I want people to stop dying.
Yeah, we want to stop the war. We want to stop the war.
I've been loving the poker analogies.
Because there's no winner or loser right now.
Right.
There's the Ukrainian people are
no matter what
suffering.
happens. Yeah, like the best thing for everybody is ending this war. But you have people who are proud or indoctrinated. But I've been using a lot of poker analogies lately because I've been playing quite a bit, and I love this. You watch professional poker players, and you can see what cards they have. And you can tell one of these guys is going to lose. The other guy is going to win. But that guy who's going to lose is convinced he's going to win, so he takes everything he's got and he shoves it in, and the commentator's going, no, oh, he's walking. That's how I feel with Ukraine. That the West is in a no-win scenario, but they are determined, no matter what, to just put it all on the line.
Pushing all the chips in.
And Trump is saying, fold the hand, live another day. Drop the cards, keep what you got. You're not happy about it, right? You lose the pot, but you get to keep playing.
I'm not even sure that, I wish it were that innocent that they think, well, we're going to win this. I think there's an effort to continue a war, to continue feeding the belly of the war machine.
The military-industrial complex wants to get paid.
Complex. They got to. There's too much money on the line. Yep. There's too much money in defense contracts. And, I think military-industrial complex and big pharma are the biggest threats to humanity.
I agree.
To our safety and security. And no one can talk about that.
And you've got...
You can't hear. I mean, I hope we don't get taken down for talking about that.
It's just how you criticize them, right? But you've got... the military-industrial complex we can rag on all day. There's really nothing they can do about that.
They haven't started to censor us on that yet.
They will, though. They will. So right now you have that story about the drone attempt on Putin's life. The two drones flew over the Kremlin. They blew him up. Was it a false flag? Is Putin lying? We don't know. Putin says, Russia says it was the U.S. that did it. A former CIA official said this is U.S. all over it. If Putin decides to escalate in such a way that he says the U.S. tried to take my life and the U.S. formally joins the war, if NATO formally joins the war in Ukraine against Russia, YouTube will outright issue a new rule saying Lying about U.S. war efforts
You're
in
right.
Ukraine is a bannable offense. And then when you factually report it, they'll take you down.
You're absolutely right. And this is the march into World War III.
Yep.
And it's not being done happenstance. Oh, oops. There is an effort to do this. This is why the people of Hungary are so opposed to the war, and they're trying to offer.
They're in a firing line.
They're trying to offer their country, Budapest, their city, capital city, as a place for peace talks. And the rest of Europe doesn't want it. They're the ones who are going to be closest to the action.
Yep.
And there's just it's very, very concerning. And this is why, I was talking a little bit, the culture war is absolutely huge, and I've been all over it for a long time. But while we are so busy talking about the culture war, which is massive, we need almost more hours in the day to cover all the craziness. While this is all keeping us very busy, we are being marched into World War III.
Yep.
We're watching our economy collapse. It's going to collapse. I predict our economy is going to collapse.
Maybe in a few months.
Maybe. This can happen very quickly. And so we're not paying attention to that. And we're watching an invasion at our border, completely destabilizing our country. We're going to be spiraling into complete chaos. And we're really worked up over a lot of things in the cultural war, which are important, but it's a lot easier to spend time for these news networks to spend time covering that ad nauseum, because they don't want to cover what's happening in Ukraine.
Are you familiar with Thucydides' trap?
No.
This is, it's a reference to whenever a dominant economic power is about to be displaced by a rising economic power, war breaks out. It's a tendency, not a law, meaning I think out of 16 historical moments, 12 have resulted in war. So there's a fear that the U.S. will go to war with China because China is very close. I think their economy right now is at 17 trillion to the U.S.'s 23. And with Biden's policies, it went from like China will supplant the U.S. by 2036 to 2028. Mm-hmm. It's rapidly sped up. So I wonder if one of the reasons we are seeing the border collapse, the economy collapse, the reason why you see the Bidens going for Chinese investments. I'm not saying it's true or I know, but you put these pieces together and you're starting to get a hint of powerful establishment interests are investing in China and have been for decades because perhaps they're preparing to tank the U.S. on purpose, in their minds, preventing war, and then putting all their money in China as a safety net. So when China rises, they're rich. Basically, their view is if we keep investing in the U.S., war will break out, or there's a high chance that it will. Our best bet is to intentionally destroy America and move all of our finances to China in the process. So that way America falls, there's no war, and then we're rich in China. I have to wonder why it is that Hunter Biden flies to China for private equity deals, and at the same time, Joe Biden's policies are destroying this country.
That's true. And
whether it's intentional or not, whether Joe Biden did it on purpose, the end result that I see is the U.S. will fall, China's economy will rise, and Joe Biden's family benefits from it.
Absolutely. And why are they not behind bars right now? Honest to God, if that was the Trumps, they would be.
Absolutely.
They would be. It's really concerning because that was ignored going into the last election. We know for a fact they were taking money from the CCP and CCP interests and Ukraine, and they have interest over there. Isn't that interesting? Those are where the two hot spots are right now.
When
the CCP is working to destabilize our country. They're buying farmland. They're buying property. And Joe Biden, I call him feeble. I think this has all been intentional. He's an America last president. He's a China first president. And I believe he's one of the best partners that the cartels have on the border.
Well, Kari, it is unfair to call Joe Biden feeble. It is unfair because feeble still implies he has some capability. Okay, this man is so out of it that, and also intentional, absolutely unfair. This man has no intentions at all. He's completely gone.
He's gone.
There's someone else. No, I think that...
well, he says the smartest man he knows is Hunter. Maybe Hunter's controlling it all.
Right. Obviously, I'm kidding.
Who's in charge of Joe Biden? He does seem to be faltering even more. He can't figure out how to get off the stage. He can't find the door.
Exactly.
It's really sad what's going on. With
feeble implies the old man walking down the stairs. Joe Biden can't find the stairs.
That's right.
So it's like,
or walk up them.
In all seriousness, I think part of it, I thought this for a while. I'm not saying it's 100%. I think you've got people surrounding him who are doing whatever they want. Their attitude is more so the Titanic has hit the iceberg with Joe Biden. So we better start taking the fine china and getting the lifeboat ready while Biden spins in circles confused.
Yeah, take what we can and try to come out on the other side.
Yeah.
As
And
part
put
of the
money in other
haves, not the
countries.
have-nots. I think this is why it's so critical the next year and a half, Tim, that we fight for what we have in this country. We can turn this around. Our Constitution, they would love nothing more than to push this globalist agenda. We're all just one big globalist blob. We lose our culture. I want to see 190 countries with strong leaders.
Yes.
I've mentioned this before, strong leaders who protect their citizens, who protect their culture. You go to England, they were asking me, we were in England recently, and they said, what'd you think of the coronation? I said, no, look, the monarchy's not for us. Thank God. We threw off the shackles of the monarchy, nearly 250 years ago. But I'm really enjoying the culture while I'm visiting. I didn't come to England to see, Saudi Arabia. You go to
Right.
Saudi Arabia to see Saudi Arabia. You come to America and you want
Flavor.
American culture.
I went to
And the globalism, they want to end all that. They want to take our culture away. They want to take our history away. They want to topple our statues. They want us to forget our history so we don't know where we came from. If you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And they want to make life just meaningless.
I don't think people understand how horrible this globalist system would be. I went to the Bahamas. I was on a cruise. We went to, I think it was Nassau. And they said, we're going to be stopping here. Everybody feel free to go out and check out the city. We're leaving at this time, so get back before then. And I'm like, oh boy, I wonder what the Bahamas has to offer. And you know what they had to offer? Starbucks, Hard Rock Cafe, Dolce & Gabbana. And I'm like, am I in Times Square or I'm in the Bahamas? I go to so many countries.
Every port was the same.
Every major urban center has almost the exact same companies, the exact same brands, Starbucks, McDonald's, and it's gross.
Mm-hmm.
When I go somewhere, I want to see their culture. I want to see what they've discovered. I want to see their values. I don't want to take from their values or infringe upon them or insert mine into theirs. I want to say, tell me how you see the world so we can learn. I think they talk about multiculturalism. And I'm like, yes, multiculturalism works when you have 190 strong countries with strong borders and strong leaders who respect their people and their values and their ways of life. And then through that diverse set of worldviews, we find the best technologies, the best policies, the best ways to live. If we homogenize all that the way we're starting to see it, then you can't rapidly adapt to a crisis. Homogenizing any kind of, like we talk about genetics. Homogenizing a gene pool kills off the species because then one disease arises and the whole species is wiped out. That's why when they talk, this is the thing about the diversity, equity, inclusivity. It is a demonic, I mean it figuratively, bastardization of what really matters. True diversity is a diversity of thought.
That's right.
And
This is why I left news, because there was no diversity of ideology and thought.
And what happens? Now we're seeing all the news organizations collapse.
Good.
Right?
Well, you
They
talked
deserve
about
it.
going to, the Bahamas, and I know I can get all this at home. What's the difference between,
Yep.
why did I even come on this trip other than the sunshine?
There's no adventure.
One of the beautiful things about Budapest that I noticed, obviously they have a lot of the riverboat cruises because they're on the Danube. So they have some of those stores, which was wonderful, and then that's fine. But you go and you see all these small shops. It's a mom and pop. It's a family.
Yeah.
COVID was the final straw that broke the camel's back for small businesses. They've been for not centuries, decades, trying to destroy small business. They sent all of our factories overseas. They destroyed the family. And then the people who survive with small businesses, pressure. Economically, it was difficult. They don't get the tax breaks. The big corporations do. Mom and pop shops, small businesses struggle to make it. Sometimes they just finally give up and sell their company to a big corporation. And
then
they cash out. And then COVID strikes. Who suffered the most besides families and our children? Small businesses.
Yep.
The fast food chain got to survive, but the mom and pop eatery is gone now.
Walmart gets to stay open. Mom and pop specialty shop gone.
Yeah.
And the horrifying thing is hearing the stories of people whose stores were destroyed and they went and got jobs at Amazon or Walmart.
It's horrifying. But this is why I think you like the small towns, and I do too, is you see less of that in a small town. You see more uniqueness,
Yep.
more what makes America America. It's really important. I think that we've got to find a way to help bring back those small businesses that were lost during COVID through no fault of their own. And I don't have the policy in my head all mapped out, but there's got to be a way to, and I believe we need to start helping families and encouraging families and helping small businesses. It's the backbone of our country, and it's actually the biggest threat to corporations are the small businesses. Now they don't
Right.
have any competition out there. It's all corporations.
There are several studies showing that the strength of an economy can be tied to how easy it is to start a business, for obvious reasons. If it's very difficult for you to start a business, there's no trade happening. If the Arab Spring starts because a man in Tunisia was trying to sell fruit from a cart, and the police were like, "You're not allowed to without a permit." So he couldn't make a living. He immolates himself. I mean, it's an extreme example. But if people had an easy path towards starting a business, that means they're going to be producing and trading, and that economic activity is good for the country.
That's why cutting regulation, cutting some of that red tape is important.
Absolutely.
We just had a bill that got voted down in Arizona by Hobbs. It was about helping people sell food on the street, in little tamale carts and food carts and that kind of thing. This is helping people survive in a very difficult Joe Biden economy, and it got voted down.
Wow.
And, because that helps small businesses, that helps working class, and we've really turned our back on the working class, and we've got to come back and rescue them. They need rescuing, or we are going to be literally billionaires and paupers. Billionaires and serfs.
I think that's where we're going. New serf class. I held off on this one for about an
You'll
hour.
own nothing and you'll like it. Isn't that what they say?
You'll be happy. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy.
be
That's what they
happy.
say. So I waited about an hour to finally get to the news, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, "Is he going to ask?" The news this morning was that you had a meeting with senators and that you may be running for the Senate in Arizona. There's a couple interesting conversations in that. One, I'm curious if you are, but also with Sinema leaving the Democratic Party, what that means for who the Democrats are and what that means for Arizona, and then what that means for you potentially being a senator.
Well, we haven't gotten into a lot of my case, which is currently still in the courts, actually, today and next week. And so that's my focus, 100%. I'm focused on that. And I believe that we have the greatest case ever in this type of case. I'm being cryptic right now for our censorship lords out there. And that's where my focus is 100%. But I'm also realizing that I've looked at the legal system right now, and it isn't fair. We're not seeing fair judiciary, and we're seeing bias and unfairness everywhere. And I don't know what the result will be. I can't predict how judges are going to behave.
Right.
And it appalls me that they feel that kind of crime could have happened on the great people of Arizona to take away and stop our movement. I was that dangerous. They called me the most dangerous politician in America. I'm that dangerous to the status quo, to what they want at the border. They knew I meant business. We're going to go in there and we're going to secure that border. We're going to call it what it is, an invasion. I was right. It is an invasion. And we're going to reform our sacred vote, elections, right? We're going to reform that and make it secure for Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. And they couldn't have someone like me in office. So they had to do that. Do you think that I should allow them to push not just me, because it's never been about me, but our movement away like that and say, no, you guys will not have a voice. You will not have a say. I think our movement's too big and too important. It's a movement of the people in Arizona.
That's why.
So I feel that I'm called to stay in politics, as disgusting as politics is, as horrific and slimy and infected as the swamp is. I think it is my duty to the citizens of Arizona to stay in and continue to fight for them. So I don't know.
Well,
I mean, that is something I'm contemplating. And yes, I did meet with about a half a dozen senators, and we discussed what that would look like and whether it's something I want to do. And I'm considering it. But I will not let these bastards push our movement down and stop our movement. No way in hell.
I went
and
further.
And if they think that I'm going away, they got another thing coming. Because me and the Mama Bear Revolution, we're coming at you, and you will never get rid of us. We're going to save our country for our children. We've got something, and I can feel the hair rising on me right now. We've got something worth fighting for, and it's our kids. And whether you have a baby, you have a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old, or you have a kid who's 40 and you've got grandbabies, we got something worth fighting for, and this country is worth fighting for them. My life will be, maybe I'll get another 40 years. I'm in my 50s. I've had a great life. I had a wonderful childhood. I had freedom and a great America. And I'm just not willing to walk away from this fight and let them take our country into a place that my kids will never have a good future.
Look,
and my grandkids won't either.
You're talking about being a senator. I said you should be Trump's VP. I'm saying you should go to the top. We talked about this a couple times.
It's interesting because that's something that the president will decide.
Yeah.
And I support him in any way. I support President Trump because I love what he did for our country. I love that he sacrificed his beautiful life to step into this. I know how gross it is. I did it myself. I stepped into the swamp. And he's worked hard. He's fought for the people. And at every step of the way, he's been attacked by members of his own party, the Democrat, everybody, you name it. The media's been the worst to him. 8 years of just lies and slander and defamation to try to convince the American people that he's a bad guy. And really, it's going the opposite way. The American people are like, why are they attacking him so hard? What are they trying to hide? What are they trying to prevent? And
why are they lying?
Why are they lying?
Yeah.
And so I respect the hell out of him. I know he's incredibly capable to do the job, and I believe he can save our country. I want absolutely nothing in return for that. I'm speaking out in support of him because I want my country back, and I am asking for nothing in return. He will decide that. I don't know what he will decide. I haven't had a conversation with him about it, and I'm just trying to look to the future and say, what if the court system does not do the right thing here for the people? Should I run for an office that is coming up in 24?
I think so.
It's a three-way race.
Yeah.
A lot easier to win, a lot easier to manipulate things on the big election day, right?
I think you should. I've had people respond. So we talked about this on the show, and it was really great actually, because I'm on the show and they're talking about extraditing Trump from Florida. And Ron DeSantis responded with, look, I'm not going to get involved in this. I don't know what goes into paying porn star hush money or whatever.
That was really despicable.
And I said, the response should have been, you will not lay a hand on Donald Trump in my state. There will be no extradition. End of story. And then I said, and there's one person who I think actually would have said that. And then right away, Ian goes, Kari Lake.
You're right.
I was like, yes. I was like, I like Ron DeSantis. His policies are phenomenal. He's doing E-Verify, which a lot of conservatives and libertarians are very concerned about. They think it's bad. And my approach right now, preliminary, is if E-Verify stops illegal immigration and helps our economy and helps the American people, then I'm saying yes to it for now. But I don't know a whole lot. What I do know is just because something can be exploited or used against us doesn't mean we don't stop a bad thing. And so looking at Ron DeSantis' policies, I think he's doing a great job. Looking at him in terms of strength, look, they're mad at me about this. They were ragging on me on Twitter. Ron DeSantis may be a good VP as well for Trump in that he's a policy guy. He's straight-laced. He'll sign the books and wear the suit. But he's not the powerful, fist-waving fighter. Now, some people respond to me saying that I am right about you being the strong personality who would say what needs to be said about you will not extradite Trump, etc. But the response was, if Trump already has that, then don't you need a DeSantis who's going to be more of the policy kind of toned down guy?
I think the loyalty's not there, unfortunately. Obviously, this is another thing. It tells a lot about someone's character when I'm sure in your life you've helped people out before, people who, didn't have much, and you give them an opportunity, and then
they stab you in the back.
I hope they don't. I hope that hasn't happened.
It happens a lot.
You help people, and you kind of expect, wow, this is a friendship. There's an appreciation there, and then when there isn't, when you are stabbed in the back, that shows a character flaw. It shows a character flaw on their side.
Yep.
And President Trump helped Ron DeSantis. But I really am looking more to the people of Florida who just voted to reelect him. He ran to say, I'm going to be a second-term governor. I want to represent the people of this state and continue doing great things for Floridians. And then to, boom, be running for office. I think that's kind of a bait and switch on the people.
And they just passed that law. What was it? It was...
where you can run and keep your job.
That's right. It used to be that you couldn't, or that there was some legal arguments that you might not be able to. And they've just passed a law. I think Ron DeSantis signs it, saying he can now run as governor. And I think there's always an easy pitch to the people of, if you've appreciated the work I've done for you as governor, then let me extend that work to the great people of this country.
And there's always 2028. I think,
Right.
I think he'd be great in 2028. I really do. But I think this is. I'm supporting President Trump 100% wholeheartedly. And then they say, "Oh, you attacked Ron." I go, "No, I didn't attack Ron. I just said I think this is President Trump's year. We saw what happened in 2020 to the voters. It was unfair, and I think this is his year. We need him on a world stage."
So one thing that really grinds my gears, and I know why CNN asks the questions they do about 2020, is that for me, it's frustrating. And I know for a lot of independents and moderates, talking about January 6th and 2020 is frustrating. And so a year ago, I'm talking about how I was like, look, I'm leaning towards DeSantis because Trump is just talking about 2020. He's not telling me what he's for. And then the Ohio thing happens, the derailment. Trump's back. He goes down there. He buys McDonald's for the first responders. It was personable. It was humanizing. It was the right thing to do. And he was the only candidate to do it.
He's a man of the people. He really is.
That was good. Trump's come back. He's released these videos talking about policy. And I said, thank you. That is why, look, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I did in 2020 because I saw the effect of his policy. Now that he's getting back to the policy, I'm like, that's the Trump that we need.
And this is why CNN wouldn't ask him about that. Did you hear them ask about his policy on building new cities and new homes so that young people could have homes and could have that starter home and start a family? Did you see them ask about that, or
No, but I
talk
saw
about what
him.
he's going to do to turn around our universities so they stop being indoctrination mills and start educating our kids?
I saw him cut the show short because they didn't like what he was talking about.
And then they were just completely out of their minds. I was like, am I the only one thinking this? These guys are out of their minds. Who watches this garbage?
And then they're getting attacked by their own employees and by Democrats. How dare you platform Trump? Anderson Cooper gave a statement saying you are right to be mad for Trump to lie like that. It's like, oh man, look, here's the funny thing. CNN gets their best ratings in a long time, 3.3 million viewers. And then they immediately...
Is that what it was?
3.3. And they immediately turn around and spit in the face of the people who watch their network. It's like...
When is somebody going to get that we want America First coverage? We're not asking for it to be biased. We just want America First coverage that's unbiased. The first network that does that will go so high in the ratings, they won't know what to do with their money.
If CNN did the Trump town hall and Caitlin Collins debated with Trump as she did, and then afterwards CNN stood by, and Anderson Cooper came out and said, we will have Trump on this network because he is running to be president and the people need to hear him.
Like it or not.
Trump supporters would be like, oh, thank you. Instead, what they do is they condemn Trump. They lie about Trump. They reject their own viewers.
They cry for 2 hours afterwards.
Right. And so it's, we had this conversation yesterday. Someone asked, should CNN be praised for hosting Donald Trump? The answer is yes, they should.
Well,
but should they be defended for condemning Trump after the fact when they chose to do it? No, they're grifters and they're lying. Mm-hmm. If CNN comes out and says, we are going to host Donald Trump, I say, thank you, CNN. Let the people hear what he has to say. If you then turn it into a clown show where you lie about what he's saying, then we should criticize them. But I put it this way. Let's be tactful about it. CNN got 3.3 million viewers from that Trump town hall, many of them Trump supporters and moderates. They're happy to hear Trump. The left is attacking CNN and refused to watch. Make the incentive model clear for CNN. If you platform Donald Trump and let him speak, even if you argue with him, we'll watch, you'll make money, your ratings will go up, and we'll say thank you. No matter what you do, the left will condemn you and attack you and insult you and not watch.
What if the globalist media doesn't care about ratings at all? They don't care about making money because they care about, for the next year and a half, pushing a globalist agenda so that they can really bring America down and push this. That might be what's going on because they don't seem to care about the ratings.
Right.
Ratings equal dollars, and dollars is how you keep the lights on. And it seems like the corporate owners, the corrupt corporate owners don't care about money because they have a bigger agenda, which is pushing the globalist movement.
Yes, But either way, they put Trump on TV to 3.3 million people.
Yeah, but they would do it more often if and get better ratings, and if they cared really about ratings.
Yeah, I look at it like...
Did they return back the next night to their normally dismal ratings? I'm sure they did.
Oh, yeah. And it's apocalyptically bad. I think they barely get they get low five figures, mid five figures in terms of the key demographic.
Be interesting if they brought one fair person on who was conservative leaning, and not just conservative.
Fair point. Byron Donalds did go on a panel.
He was great. No, I'm talking about a commentator that they have on every night at such and such time, who was America First and fair. I think they would have huge ratings for that 1 hour, because I do believe that the America First, American will tune into that.
If CNN did a show where at 7 p.m. they had an America First person
Tim Pool
and a Democrat, two different people with opposing views discussing the subjects peacefully and rationally, highest rated show.
The problem is what they do is they say, we did have Republicans on there, we did have conservatives, but they're the kind of rhino type, right?
It's like The View.
Yeah, they go, we have a Republican on the show. They did that in our race as well. They would say, we talked to two Republicans. And it's like, oh, these are literally Republicans who are running super PACs against me, who are never Trumpers, are not for America First policy. They're not. We have this rift right now in the Republican Party, and we're not all the same, unfortunately.
You know what I think? I think that if I, on my show, said, I do like Trump, but I'm leaning towards DeSantis, and the war in Ukraine is good, the smears would stop. They would immediately come out and say, oh, Tim Pool's a centrist. If I supported the war to any degree and I was opposed to Trump, even the smallest degree, they'd invert it and they'd say, We'll take it.
But I'm being attacked by those same people. That's interesting, Tim.
You can't be...
I guess we can't be for Trump, huh?
Yeah, you can't.
Tough luck.
and it's interesting because I think about this in terms of what their goals and their agenda is. And sure enough, the smears are starting to come out because I said, I'm kind of thinking Trump's the guy for this one.
I think though, going in the next year, we need to expand it beyond, just people like you and I being willing to take those hits. And I tell this to people when I'm out and about. It's so imperative that we use our First Amendment right now in the next year and a half. We were in a DC hotel room and ordered like a hamburger to the room, and guy came up and he saw that Trump was on and he kind of scoffed a little bit. I think he was kind of testing out like, oh, am I safe to say that I like the guy or not? And I go, I kind of asked him, like, what's going on? He's like, oh, that guy. And I go, oh, Trump? President Trump? We love him. He's fantastic. And then he kind of smiled and said, I do too. But I think he was afraid to say it. So it was safer for him to kind of make a little bit of it's safe for me to say, well, I'm not so sure about him. And then when I said, we love him. He's great. We need him back. I took the risk of doing that. Not that it was a risk for me, because you guys know where I stand, and that gave him permission.
Right.
And we need to let people know where we stand, that we are not willing to let America go. We're going to stand up and fight for our country, our Constitution, our rights. And
this is what's crazy. I always lead out when the subject matter comes up. But it is interesting to me that there are people who will only admit they like Trump after the fact. And I'm like, you guys should be loud and boisterous. So I'll be at a bar or at the poker tables or something, and the conversation of politics usually comes up because we're playing a cash game, right? And the economy is an issue, and then Biden comes in. And as soon as someone brings up politics, I immediately say, I like Donald Trump. I'd vote for him again. You don't need, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, tell me who you're voting for, because the person gets scared. No, I say right away.
You're the brave one.
But
the truthful one.
I'm on, we do a show to millions of people, and I will say outright, here's what I think. I try to be reasonable. I try to have reason, like logic behind what I do.
You appreciate the economy. You want that economy back. You appreciate the peace. This is a man who didn't start a war, was wrapping wars up, brought us peace in the Middle East for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And
wiped out ISIS.
Wiped out ISIS in no time at all. And they go, he can't bring peace in 24 hours. I believe that he can. He's got something going on, that he's got a plan. I know that Joe Biden can't. And I will ask you this. Who gave us a more secure border? And I ask the people watching, and I know your viewers will agree, Biden or Trump? We're losing our country. The fastest way to lose your country without a single shot being fired is to open up your borders. And that's what's happening. We're losing America.
And what they do is they try to confuse and lie, and they say, oh, but most of the border apprehensions were happening under Trump. And it's like, you do realize that means he was stopping them. Like, an apprehension means law enforcement apprehended the individual. And then Trump gave us Title 42. They say, oh, well, that was only for COVID. Okay, well, now Joe Biden's doing nothing. And it's been very, very bad.
And mark my words, he's going to push for asylum, not amnesty, asylum for every one of them. And,
right
and
now,
we cannot allow that to happen as Americans. It's very valuable. It's something that should be earned to be an American citizen. And we have a legal system for that. We cannot allow millions of people. It's not 5 million. I think Trump have said it's closer to 18 million that are coming in under Biden. I mean, it's way I don't believe for 1 second the stats that the government's giving us, because I'm living in Arizona. We're seeing it all over.
And then you had that. Where was that man? He lived. He had property on the border.
I think it was in San Luis, or I think that's where it was, county.
Yeah, where he shot the illegal immigrant. The criminally
and now
charging him.
he's an elderly man, and he's behind bars, and that's unfortunate what's happening to him. I support that man. We're at a point where we have to protect ourselves. We can't rely on calling 911. We've defunded the police. They can't show up. And sometimes there's no time. You've got somebody attacking you, like the people on the subway. We had some strong, brave men do the right thing in helping so that nobody got hurt. And this man had been very erratic and had done many things like that before. And if we can't protect ourselves, we're sure to be victimized.
I think we see it all over the country, right? So it's not just this man in New York who's on a subway train. It's a guy who's got property on the border, and people are illegally crossing onto his property, and they're accusing him of murder now because a foreign national illegally entered the country and was trespassing on his property. Is there no right to defend yourself?
This is one of these counties in Arizona that has a very liberal sheriff. It's a small county with a very liberal sheriff, and it's an agenda. They're using the, and this is, one of the things that I was so proud of, and I still am, is our policy that we push, which was America First policy, custom made for Arizona. And I talk about it in the book I wrote. I did write a book recently, Tim.
What's it called?
And that's coming out. But I bring it up because I put all those policies in there. I want people to know that these aren't radical, extreme policies. These are common sense policies to get us out of the mess the political class has gotten us into. They used to say to me, "You don't have political experience." And I said, "Yeah, that's the first line on my resume." The people with political experience have gotten us into this mess.
Political experience means the ability to lie to people to trick them into voting for you.
True. And who has a ton of political experience? Joe Biden.
That's right.
The guy is incompetent. And I'm being nice. 50, yeah, didn't he say 120 years or something once? It's like, okay, Joe. So I'm really proud of our policy. I'm so proud of it. I actually made a chapter to talk about how we need to take those America First policies, put it in each and every state, remind people that we are sovereign states, 50 individual sovereign states. We need 50 strong governors to protect the citizens. And we don't need to wait like victims, helpless victims, for the federal government to come in and save us. Our governors can do that. Our states should be doing that right now.
What's the book called?
The book is called Unafraid, Just Getting Started. And I talk about this amazing campaign that we have. This, me walking away from my career, a little bit about my childhood, walking away from my career, just thinking I'm going to go work behind the scenes and do something different. And then the amazing thing of the Arizona citizens asking me to run, and deciding, well, what the heck, I will step into the political arena.
Because you had that viral video where you smashed a TV, I think, right? Was it like a sledgehammer or something?
That was one of my first ads coming out saying, hey, I'm running for governor because we've got a crisis on our hands. Our border's wide open. News media is lying to us. And then they get mad when we don't believe them.
Yeah.
I said something about Ukraine the other day, and I said, we don't know the full truth of what's happening there because the media is lying. They've been lying. They lied about COVID. They lied about stats. They lie about everything. We don't know. And thank God we discovered that, because the alternative media, the new media, is coming forward, and we're able to get different voices, different ideologies to at least food for thought, right?
This is what they don't like about independent media. Someone asked me, we were talking about the war in Ukraine, and they said, certainly you can't believe what Russia is saying. And I was like, absolutely, of course you can't believe what Russia is saying. Of course Putin is lying about everything. Do you think that means that Joe Biden is telling the truth? So, I put it like, if Joe Biden was in front of me and Vladimir Putin was in front of me, and they both said something contradictory, I'm going to be like, well, I don't like the guy, but I'm more inclined to believe Joe Biden than I would be for Vladimir Putin. I mean, that dude's got his agenda as well. But if you believe the U.S., NATO are going to tell you the truth about what's going on an active battlefield, I got a bridge to sell you.
Well, they didn't tell us the truth about Nord Stream.
Right.
I mean, I don't know who to believe anymore. What I like to do is take a look at all the information coming out. Press clippings, not press clippings, but like when they do a press conference and they speak, they address their citizens in Ukraine, Russia. You listen to all of it, and you feel for the truth, which we all kind of know inside of us, and then you make some assessment there. But I don't want it going through the filter of CNN and MSNBC and Reuters. I don't want it going through the filter of that because I don't trust that filter. That filter's off.
Lies.
And I talk about the fake news in my book as well.
It's amazing to me because I do feel
Which you
like...
can find at karilake.com.
There you go.
Actually, you can pre-order it. It's not coming out until the end of June, but you can do pre-orders on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And I never sell things, so right now I'm kind of selling something.
Oh, absolutely.
Or you can go to my website and find it there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always wondered about the media, and I feel like if they took an honest approach, they'd fare way better. If CNN, if Anderson Cooper came out and actually interviewed someone in the military who explained the real reason behind the war in Ukraine, I think support for the war in Ukraine would go up a lot. But they lie all the time. And the issue is you insult people when you lie and they know you're lying and they say, I'm not going to do business with you because you're a liar. But if they came out and said, listen, Russia has a gas monopoly through Gazprom in Ukraine, which makes very high energy costs in Europe, which allows China to outpace us. We tried building a pipeline from Qatar through Syria and Turkey, and Syria told us no because they wanted to help Russia. We will not sit by and let the Russians and the Chinese take down the American economy, and that means we're willing to go to war. I'm not in favor of that mentality, but that is a strong component of why they go to war. I'd be willing to bet you get a lot of people who would be like, oh, that's all true,
But none of this would be happening if we had a strong America. Right now, we don't have a strong leader. It wouldn't be happening because
it's because they're globalists and they want us fighting on the behalf of Europe. Mm-hmm. Whereas Trump is like, let Europe be Europe.
190 strong leaders,
right,
protecting their citizens, and that's the key. And that's the opposite of what globalism is. But here's the bigger problem. And Elon's been talking about this. He's talking about the importance of independent journalists. That is the most critical thing. All of these news operations have sponsors. You see it in their ads.
You mean Pfizer?
You got to make the sponsors happy when you work for them, right? You never piss off the sponsor. And when you have sponsors, that's who they are protecting. That's who they are bowing down to. Not the people. They're not looking for truth. And they certainly weren't during COVID. You could not even seek out a different doctor to give you a different piece of it. If you went in and they said, Tim, you've got this disease. We need to do this. We need an operation. You go, I'm going to get a second opinion. You might even get a third opinion because that's a pretty serious thing. We weren't allowed to get a second, third opinion during
You're a conspiracy
COVID.
Theorist.
Just get that mask on your child's face and put your kid in a mask and sit them on the kitchen table and take them out of school. And, we couldn't even get that to me was the biggest red flag of what was going on in the media. And that's why I walked away because the push for pushing fear and division. Keep us divided, keep us agitated, keep us angry, living in fear. A population that's afraid and angry are very easy to control.
I want to tell you, I think Trump was wrong when he said he could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. He's completely wrong. He'd end it in 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes, how would that be?
He'd get on the phone. As the moment Trump becomes president, he's on the phone with Putin, he's on the phone with Zelensky, and he says, stop fighting, we're going to talk. The fighting stops. The war's over. Now, of course, in a literal sense of conflict, the moment Trump's elected, the fighting stops. And from that point forward, the fighting will never resume. That is the war being over. Formally declaring an end to hostilities will take 24 hours. Okay, fair point. But I think the issue here is, do you want Ukraine to win the war? What does that mean, winning the war? How do you ever really win a war? Everybody dies and then the fighting stops?
Makes you wonder if there's this globalist push, and this war really, really would accelerate that push, unfortunately. And so if we
Yeah.
get Trump in charge and we stop that that march toward a globalist kind of future, what do they call it? They're trying to change the word. Globalism is really
Multinationals.
communism, in my opinion.
They say that's anti-Semitic to call it globalism now. And it's like, what? It just means people who are in favor of a one world system of governance.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with your race or
I think he
ethnicity.
ends it in 24 hours as well. And I think you're probably right. Before he even takes the oath of office.
Hostilities
yeah.
cease. I bet the moment he gets, as soon as the results come in on TV. So in fact, Trump was wrong. It's going to be negative 2 months. The results come in saying Trump is president. Putin immediately says, get me in touch with Trump's people. I bet Putin says it because he knows that he's going to get a little bit. Ukraine knows the fighting stops, and they're going to say, okay. So they already tried to have negotiations, and Boris Johnson flies in and shuts it down because the West is adamant that we take Ukraine, NATO takes Ukraine, and Russia's upset about this because Crimea is their only warm water port. Mm-hmm. I think the TV says Donald Trump is projected to be your winner 2024 presidential election. Putin calls his people immediately and says, we're declaring a truce in Ukraine. We need to talk. The moment you're in office, the moment you have the authority, let's put an end to this. And Trump will say, yes. They might try and pull. So the thing Trump's got to be careful of is they're going to try and pull a Logan Act thing. Like he wasn't officially, right? They'll make something up like they did with Michael Flynn. But I think the moment he's inaugurated, Putin says, stop. Trump's gonna work this out. We're going to stop fighting. I think Putin fears Trump, respectfully fears him. Right. I don't think Putin's like shaking, like, oh no, Trump. I think he's like, let's be careful when we're dealing with this Donald Trump. He can be erratic, he can be strong, but he'll also be reasonable. I think Russia ends up getting a lot. I think they end up, I don't know if they'll take Donbass, but I think they get Crimea, and I think that puts an end to it. Mm-hmm. And I think Ukraine has no choice. I think Trump says to Ukraine, we're not going to fund this anymore. It's over. No more fighting, no more dying.
You end a war by stopping the money going to it. And stopping the bullets and stopping the tanks, and you say, we're going to the peace negotiating table.
Except you know what else Trump does?
But I don't know that a phone call, well, actually, I do think a phone call from Joe Biden saying, men, let's get to the peace table. But I'm not sure he wants it to end.
He doesn't. But I also think Trump does something else. I think Trump says I think he's got Zelensky, he's got Putin. He goes, listen to me, Zelensky, no more money for you. This is a waste of our time, of our energy, of our resources to fight for this. Putin, you're not getting the Donbass. I will nuke Moscow. And Russia's like, okay.
You know, I spent 525 days on the campaign trail, and I talked to more voters, I think, than any candidate across the country did in 2021 and 2022. Not a single person said, we need to spend more money in Ukraine.
Right.
And conversely, whenever that came up, it was people saying, why the hell are we doing this when our own border is wide open? We have no security in our state. We've got fentanyl pouring in.
Yep.
Our kids are being psychologically abused. We have so many issues.
And
to be pouring money in that when our streets aren't safe. And, you can't, when your house is on fire, you're not going to throw in a bucket of water on a house that's like 10 miles away. You got to put your house fire out.
Yeah. It's like our house is on fire and, the property owner's like, quick, everybody run to the other side of town. Quite literally, someone mentioned, I think it was Benny Johnson, when it came to Ohio, the train derailment, the chemical spill, the lives destroyed, and their lives still destroyed. Biden flew quite literally as far away as possible, the other side of the planet, going to Ukraine. He decides to go to a foreign conflict and ignore. And guess who goes to Ohio? And you know what?
That was huge.
It wasn't Marianne Williamson. I like Marianne Williamson. She's very nice. She's running for office.
Have you had her on?
No, we've invited her several times.
That'd be interesting.
And she's a very nice person. And I think she's a good person. She didn't go there. Ron DeSantis didn't go there. Even Vivek Ramaswamy, who I'm a big fan of, didn't go there. Now, he did donate a lot of money to the efforts. And he so I respect that. But Trump was the only presidential candidate who said, I'm going to go help these people.
That's huge.
And it's funny. He comes with these big pallets of food, Trump water and things like that, and the left attacked him for it.
Remember when he would go to, help people who had been through a hurricane, and he was tossing out, I think it was like paper towels to people.
Yeah.
And they were like, he's throwing paper towels at them. I mean, they just cannot help themselves.
There's nothing he can do.
It's like if Trump cured cancer, they would criticize him.
Yep.
Is there anything that they find worthy in that man who's done so much? I think
When Donald Trump stopped ISIS, the Washington Post referred to the rapist, terrorist leader as an austere scholar.
that's right.
I just can't. It's insane. And this is the challenge I see, though.
When the Arizona Supreme Court gave us a victory, the New York Times said that I lost. And
That's
then in
right.
the small print, except on one, then the truth came out and you got to read this fine print.
So when people, they exploit ignorance to it's factual but not truthful. You file a lawsuit. You see it in every lawsuit. Someone will say, on these 10 reasons we're suing. The judge will then say, or they'll argue, half of it gets removed. You see it with defamation cases. They'll be like, these 5 things are defamation. It happened with the Covington kids, who won, by the way. You know, this is Nick Sandman getting smeared. They said, oh, the judge dismisses 4 counts, Sandman loses, and then he gets paid out of settlement. No. When you file a suit, you have as many claims as possible.
It's all about getting the headline. And the same thing with the Trump case, this E. Jean Carroll. They want to be able to talk about sexual assault and rape. They want to be able to talk about porns. They want to be able to just put those little brain worms in people's heads. They want to be able to have the crawl bottom of the screen. Yep. And people just see it. They don't even realize it's coming into their subconscious. But they want to be able to talk about it. He'll win on appeal. I believe he'll win, and I believe the other side will have to pay his legal fees, but that's going to be months down the line. The damage is being done, and this is, in a way, election interference, election tampering, when they're pushing false narratives, false stories as a way to damage one candidate. And that's why when DeSantis had that comment about when he threw the porn star thing in, I thought that is such a low blow.
Yep.
To somebody who helped you out. What kind of person does that? It was so obvious.
It was weakness.
Felt like a consultant told him to say that. And that disappointed me. I'm not, I'm impressed with many of the things he's done, but that really disappointed me.
I'm going to piss off the DeSantis people right now. I tweeted out a video. Someone tweeted a video of Jazz Jennings. Jazz Jennings was identified by his parents or her parents, Jazz is trans, as trans at 3 years old. We started receiving what they call gender-affirming care at 7, puberty blockers at 11, cross-sex hormones, and then finally surgery as a minor at 17. I tweeted this video of Jazz being very depressed and upset. It's an edit where someone took clips from the show because they have a show on TLC. I said, where is Ron DeSantis? This is happening in Florida? And the response I got from DeSantis' press team was, I'm sorry he doesn't have a time machine to go back and prevent this from happening, but he's doing X, Y, and Z. It was a terrible move on their part because I'm correct. Jazz Jennings' family lives in South Florida, and they have for some time. And Jazz Jennings received multiple surgeries, one of which took place while Ron DeSantis was the governor. I like Ron DeSantis, but this is weakness. This is an inability to act. And there's a horrifying video where Jazz Jennings' mother says that she wakes Jazz up in the middle of the night with what's called a dilator, a medical instrument that has to be physically inserted into the graft wound for the sex change operation to stop the wound from closing. I am not saying this in a way to be insulting to anybody. I am trying to use basic fact-based academic terms. The mother says, if you don't do this, I will. The mother then says, if that thing seals up, I will wring her neck. Actually says those words. I said, that sounds like somebody should go knock on the door of this family and ask if everything's okay. Separate the mother from the child, give an in-depth interview to the child. If you were in an apartment and you heard
this is all on like a reality TV show?
Reality TV show.
So that's so unfortunate.
If you were in your apartment and you heard a man and woman screaming, and then you heard glass shatter and the woman scream, you'd call the police. The police would show up, knock on the door at the very least and say, can you both come out and talk to us? And we're going to ask you what happened. I'm not saying anybody gets arrested. Maybe the woman says, we were playing Twister and I kicked a vase. I was screaming. We were having fun. Everything's fine. And the cops say, sorry about that. And they leave. But the cops still come. They still knock on the door. I said, doesn't what we see from the Jazz Jennings family warrant a knock on the door? Instead of getting a response from the DeSantis administration that we're doing the best we can, we have banned these surgeries for minors in the state, These are the policies we're putting in place.
That's
I got
good. That's
insults. I got called a grifter and a liar. And I said, I think the real issue is that Ron he's great on policy. I think he's the best governor we have right now, but this shows tremendous weakness. I think he's scared to go up against a reality TV celebrity family because he wants to run for president and he doesn't want that used against him. But if he's going to allow a mother to say that she will wring the neck of her child unless the child engages in a practice the child does not want to, which I believe shows physical abuse, I mean, that's the bare minimum you should be doing with your administration. Maybe not even Ron, but obviously his attorney general or his law enforcement department. When the issue came to Trump's extradition, and they said, look, we're not going to get involved in that, it was so tremendously weak. If he really wanted to be president, and he hasn't announced or anything like that, but if he did, and he wanted to win.
coming in June.
Yeah. It's remarkable to me. He needs better press people. Because
I do hear that some of the big donors are kind of starting to get a little bit nervous about where things are going with the polling and that kind of thing.
Because he doesn't have the strength.
But we'll see. I mean, I'd never hear, I hear people talking about who the matchup's going to be. I've seen a lot of poll numbers. If Trump looks really strong, they're going after him. It'd be really comfortable to be somebody running on the other. For DeSantis, he hasn't endured 8 years of nonstop vicious lies and attacks. He's had some criticism, but there's no one who's had more criticism than Trump, and he can withstand a lot. That man, I talk to him. I've been around him quite often. One time I was walking with him from his office to his residence in Florida, and we were just chatting along the way, and I just said, how do you do it? I mean, do you ever, because I feel that we can relate on
How do you do
things.
it?
I feel like he and I can relate on a few things.
Yeah.
We've had some similar things happen. And he just looked at me and said, what's our choice?
Yeah.
We got to stand up and fight. Quitting, when you quit, you lose. And he has not lost any of his fight. And in some ways, I think he's more resolved to get in there and he sees what's happening with Biden. And he could easily go back to his life. He's a billionaire and he's got beautiful properties around it'd be very tempting to go back to that life. But he realizes if he does, we lose our country. I'm so glad he's in the fight.
You saw when they released his taxes, right?
Yeah.
They were like, we finally got Trump's taxes. And what do they prove? They prove that Trump lost a lot of money while he was president. Every year, losses,
And never
losses,
took a
losses.
salary.
And didn't take a salary. And they thought it was going to be the biggest smear against him. Why? It shows that he sacrificed. Look,
Yep.
Trump's got, there's no such thing. There's no saints. No one's perfect. Trump's got some good policies that I like. He's got some character attributes that I think we can criticize. But I think he's the best we've seen in terms of foreign policy and domestic policy out of any of these previous presidents.
For sure.
And the one thing they have against him that works is he mean tweets.
And he did everything he did, which was great for our economy with the constant attacks from the media, the people in D.C., some members of his own party coming at him. He did all of. Imagine if he didn't have all of that, just constant adversity, what he could accomplish.
Two
He could
fake
even do more.
impeachments.
2 fake impeachments, constant fake news stories.
And
Here's the deal. We're all imperfect. I'm imperfect. I'm assuming that you would say the same thing about yourself. Wouldn't it be fun if we could dial up the exact attributes we want of everybody around us? Probably be pretty boring.
Yeah, very boring.
Just as we needed Ronald Reagan to come on the scene in 1980 and pull us up from despair under Jimmy Carter.
Oof.
He really did. He lifted us up with that amazing Midwest optimism, sensibility. He was a charming person, and he made everyone feel like, yeah, we can get through this. We needed President Trump, a brash New Yorker, to come in and shake us awake to what was going on.
A moderate.
Yeah.
Vox.com called Trump a moderate in 20.
Is that what they called him?
Yeah, and because he is.
Well, I think
when-
America First policies aren't right-wing extremism.
No.
That's what they want to call us.
Yep.
They're very common sense. We've got to deal with these problems we're facing with common sense policy. And what's been happening is not working before. Trump came in and found policies that worked. But we have to get the fake news. We have to reveal, it's taken this long to show people how bad the fake news is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they're not tuning in and believing everything they see. I don't know about you, but I'm venturing to guess that there were people who tuned in to Trump's CNN town hall who maybe hadn't been totally aware of the bias. And when they saw that woman that was doing the commentary, I don't know, who was moderating,
Debating.
attacking,
Yeah.
that woke people up. That was a new level of attack that I hadn't seen.
I think that may be why they cut it.
And they're calling him the aggressive one,
Yeah.
the mean one. I will take someone who communicates with a mean tweet rather than somebody who is unable to communicate, like Joe Biden, unable to string 2 or 3 words and sentences together without notes, without pre-written notes like Biden has. Biden can't communicate.
You know why I like
Trump can.
He had those tweets in his jacket, and he's like, I don't know if I should whip it out. And he leans over, I'm going to whip it out. And then he pulls it out. We all started busting out laughing.
Oh my gosh.
But he brought
the receipts, as they say.
Yeah. And Caitlin Collin kept lying. She said, why did you wait 3 hours to say anything about what's going on? He goes, I got it right here at 2:30. I said, be peaceful, no violations, no violence. And then he's like, that was a half an hour after they stormed the Capitol.
What's interesting too? Let's say it was 3 hours, just for the hell of it. He's doing a speech. He's got to get in the vehicle, get back to the White House. There's some time involved before he really fully understands what I think that's actually pretty quick.
It is.
It's pretty quick.
The barricades came down.
That shows you they're running out of things to attack him on.
The barricades came down around 1 p.m. Trump was on stage talking. They breached the building around 2 p.m. Trump issued a statement within 30 minutes. So you got it, like you're saying, like what you're saying, it's true. He's in the car. He's getting updates from his people. He doesn't know what's going on. And they say, look, there's some people in there. They're rioting. They're fighting with cops. And he goes, okay, I'll put out a tweet. What should I say? I'll say this. Half an hour.
Yeah.
Half an hour. He said, no violence. We're the party of law and order. Don't do this. The whole thing, everything he does, no matter what he does, they find a way to make it bad. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump could run into a burning building and save a box full of baby puppies. And then they would write something negative like, Trump's reckless endeavor risks life of puppies. It's like yes, by poor puppies suffer smoke inhalation due to Trump, actions.
Trump didn't save them fast enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he already there? Trump was president. No matter what he does.
Let me ask you something, because you're a little bit younger than me, a lot maybe. Do you think your generation is waking up to some of the stuff? Because I felt in my race that a lot of young people were coming forth after the crazy COVID restrictions that changed and affected their lives. But politically, you talk to a lot of people. What about your generation? Where are they?
I think millennials are split. I think Gen Z is actually waking up. It's not so much that they're waking up, though. I think
they involved? Or are they just like,
we've seen some videos. Young people are just rejecting the status quo like they do. And the status quo is woke garbage. But you know what I think? I think it's very simple. In the 2000s, studies were done showing that liberals were having about 1.5 kids and conservatives were having two kids. It's like 1.43 to 2.01 or something like that. That meant conservatives were replacing themselves and liberals were not. Fast forward 23 years later, what do you get? Pew Research shows that Gen Z is slightly more conservative in some areas.
Interesting.
For the first time in 100 years, a generation in some areas more conservative than the previous. I don't believe that means Gen Z had a wake-up call. I think it means conservatives have more kids, so there's more conservative Gen Z kids. Now you take a look at the issue of abortion and child sex change surgery. And I said this to our leftist guest last week. Look, I'm not a pro-life conservative. You're not going to hear that from me. You want to sterilize and abort your children? That just means the future is conservative. So have fun, I guess. I tweeted this out, something to the effect of, somewhat facetiously, the left aborting their kids they're making a sacrifice for a better future, a conservative future. I'm saying it as a joke to make a point, and I show the stats. Trump supporters have one more kid, I believe, about one kid on average more than non-Trump voters. What do you think that's going to mean in 20 years? 18 years from today, they will be voting if they're born today. And there's more conservatives. The more the left starts aborting their kids and fancies abortion up to 9 months, no matter what conservatives do, the future becomes conservative. I think it's admirable that conservatives are desperately trying to save the lives of their political rivals who they genuinely don't like. But if the vote goes down to, abortion is going to be legal, the end result is just give it 20 years, give it 40 years. 2 generations from now, it's going to be 2-to-1 conservative to liberal.
If we still have a country. And we can still vote.
Yep. And so it'll get really interesting.
I feel like we have about a year and a half to save things, Tim.
I think we're going to make it through. I think the night is always darkest before the dawn. But
I just worry that if things are looking too positive for Trump, you heard that soundbite from Biden a couple weeks ago. He's like, we will not let him, come back into power.
They mean
like
it.
They'll do something and
They
try to throw
well, they entertained
what happened in
secession.
24.
In 2020, there was a war game. Boston Globe reported on this, where they basically played a political version of Dungeons and Dragons, as it were, where they all came together and said, okay, I'll pretend to be Trump, you pretend to be Hillary. And then they rolled die to see what would happen. And I think it was John Podesta or someone pretending to be Trump, or I'm sorry, someone pretending to be Hillary, said that if Trump wins in 2020, they will advise Washington, Oregon, and California to secede from the Union.
Oh my gosh.
That's in the Boston Globe. That was part of their view of what they should do as Democrats if Trump were to win.
Oh my gosh.
So when we talk about national divorce or civil war, whatever, they say, oh, we're the extremists. And I'm like, the idea came from you when you said the West Coast should secede from the Union if Trump wins. And I got to be honest, based on the things I think these people have done, I would not be surprised if they wanted at least one state to secede so they could have an emergency escape bunker. I think Donald Trump should, the first thing he does when he gets reelected, I hope he appoints a real attorney general who immediately begins filing criminal indictments against anyone in government, bureaucrat or elected official, where there is evidence of crime. We've got insider trading in stocks, indict. No more of this, but we have a delicate system and we should. No, if they're criminals, if there's provable criminal acts, charge them. I don't care what party they are. We need to actually take this country, take this stuff seriously.
Are you seeing what's happening in El Salvador? I think they went from being the murder capital of the world to there's been no murders.
In a year.
No murders.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is what we need to do. We need to go hard on the criminals, the people who are committing crimes. I don't care if they're, like you said, SEC violations or street crime. We've got to come down on it. In San Francisco, you have to have a security guard hired to watch your car if you're going to park a car. I mean, we saw the CNN. That was, irony, quite a bit of irony there with the CNN car.
And they're acting shocked by it.
And they said, and we had a security guard there. We
He watched.
Is that what it was? He watched, or did
he saw it happen, or something like that. Like, oh, they're smashing the window and stealing the stuff.
He's probably like, I'm not going to get hurt.
Well, no, you'll go to prison.
Yeah, it's
you intervene and you go to prison. We've got to you've got to catch your court case in about a minute. So, are there any final thoughts you want to wrap up on?
Well, I want to thank you, Tim, because you've had me on several times. I mean,
I'm a big fan.
I can't get on The View. And it would actually. I want to get on The View. It'd be really interesting. But,
we're launching our own version.
I love your. You are.
We're launching a morning show with moderate to conservative moms to talk about their views, their political issues, things that affect them.
I love it.
It's under construction.
That's going to be great. Well, I just thank you because we need voices like yours and the people out there that are just open to listening. Because if we just have the 5 or 6 corporate networks, we're never going to get the truth. And I'm so glad people are waking up, and we have so many more options and people who are willing to do the hard work to get the content out, to get the truth out. That's all it's about. And the America First movement is about saving our country for all of our citizens. And I'm talking Democrats and independents and Republicans as well. That's what my whole campaign was about. And, I hate that they try to call me a extremist because it's not accurate. I like accuracy. I'm about returning the government back to the citizens. And that's how our founding fathers envisioned it. So we're going to keep working. We're going to keep fighting. I won't stop. I'm not afraid. Once you've walked through fear and got to the other side, nothing makes you afraid anymore. And I'm on a mission.
Right on. I'll say 2 things. One is I could not run for office the way the things that you deal with, what Trump deals with. So I commend you for that. And the last thing is your book. Do you want to shout it out?
It's called Unafraid. We're doing pre-orders right now. It'll be on bookshelves all over, Walmart, Target. It's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. Pre-order it right now. Unafraid, Just Getting Started by Kari Lake. And you can order it as well on our website, karilake.com. And I think you'll really enjoy it. There's some really good stories in there.
Right on. And what's your Twitter?
Twitter is at Kari Lake, Karilake. I'm on Truth. I'm on Getter. I'm on Facebook as well at The Kari Lake. Apparently, apparently Kari Lake is taken. And you can find me at all those places. Go to our website and you can find out what's happening with our case. Our case is active. The fake news has been lying about it.
Is it televised?
It's well, I mean, I don't know who would televise it, but it'll be online.
Oh, okay.
It'll be
I think
online.
we'll go check it out right now.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out. This has been a blast.
Thanks, Tim.
And look forward to having you back when we get more developments and on everything that's going on.
That's great. And keep us in your prayers. Keep our lawyers, keep our whistleblowers, the judges, and just pray every day. Pray every day. We need to get back to God.
Absolutely. And for everybody who watches, thank you all so much. Become a member at timcast.com. Support us by buying Cast Brew coffee at castbrew.com. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.